welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to discuss one thing and one thing only. The most important part of your application. The part of your application that will actually move the needle and get you into dental school. It will turn you from an applicant who has no way to practice dentistry in the United States to a prospective dental degree holder, to a dental student of an American dental school. And there are many weirdly controversies about what is actually the most important part of your application. Many people write to me telling me all their stats and all their profile details and asking me, so do I have a chance? Will I get into dental school? And the answer is usually, I have no freaking idea. I don't know if you're gonna get into dental school, because when people send me their GPA, they send me all of their recommendation letters and all of their volunteering and their TOEFL scores. TOEFL scores, that's just hilarious to me. And they ask me, look, am I gonna get in? My answer is always, I don't know, because there's one part of the application that will make or break you. That is, there's one part of the application where the acceptance to dental school is yours to lose. And that part of the application is, drumroll, I will artificially add the drumroll here probably, maybe not, I'm terrible at editing my videos. It is the interview. It is the interview that is the most important part of dental school application that will actually get you into school. And in this video, I will explain why. There are many moving parts in your dental school application. It is so stressful. There's so many things that you have to do. You're studying in your school. You are getting those amazing grades. You're raising your GPA. You're the top of your class. You have recommendation letters from every single person you've ever met. You volunteered everywhere. You have work experience. You're there. You're ready. You're ready to apply. March comes. You write your personal statement. It is amazing. It is awesome. You wrote the best story in town. You submit your application. You passed all the exams. Obviously, you got perfect scores. Passed UNBD from the first try. Got 100 on TOEFL. You submitted your application. Now what? Now we sit and wait. Now is the waiting game starts. And when it comes to pass application and match application, they're pretty much exactly the same. There's really no difference there. It's just kind of the timeline is different. But the most important part of the application is still the interview. So basically, when the school invites you for an interview, they already think that your stats are good. Your stats are perfect. That once the moment you receive that interview invitation, that golden ticket, everything that was there before is out the door. Nobody will care about your GPA anymore. Nobody will care about your volunteering hours. None of that is important once you receive that interview invitation, because at that point, everything goes to zero. Because the school already thinks that everything you got going on there is good enough. They want to talk to you. They want to see you. And everybody else who is at that interview right now also have the same stats. They also all zeroed out. So comparing yourself to other people in the interview and thinking, will I get in, will I not, doesn't make any sense, because right now your admission is yours to lose. It's in your hands. It's your charisma, the way you present yourself, the way you talk to people is what's going to decide if you're actually going to get in. This is kind of when the admission process starts anew. This is kind of when nothing else matters. It's all in your hands again. It's kind of like when you're staring at that blank application and think what to write there. That's all over again. You're already in the door of the school, so now is the time to shine. And it's surprising to me how many people kind of, when they submit the application, they think they're done. They think once they got that golden ticket, that's it. They don't even prepare for the interviews, which is so surprising to me. Recently, I talked to one person who is like, I don't prepare. I know I interview well. I know my story. I am not just going to study. I'm not going to prepare. I'm focusing on the bench test. And that is actually one of the parts that throws people off, and that kind of makes people wonder about other things and think that bench test is the most important part of the application. And at some point, it has value, because schools and dental schools who have advanced standing programs are all divided in two particular different camps. So one part of schools will have their bench test first, and the other part of schools will have their interview first. So when you receive your invitation, they usually have a timeline. So you're invited to either bench test, and they write it to you. You will appear to the bench test at a certain time and a certain date. And if you pass the bench test, they will talk to you and they will decide if they want to accept you. And the other part of schools has the interview first, and then they have the bench test. And this is kind of the way where you can gauge if the school puts more weight into the bench test or it puts more weight into the interview. And yet, still, regardless, so in one part of schools, bench test is very important. Bench test is something that is part of that application process that will open the gates for you to the interview. So they put a lot of weight into the bench test. And the other part of schools that have the interview first put little weight into the bench test. So they really want to see you as a person first, and then they want to see like, okay, can you hold the handpiece? It's kind of like the last point of admission. They don't really, it's not that they don't care if you can prep, but if they liked you as a person first, yeah, your prep might be not as perfect as that other guy who has just the textbook prep, but was a douchebag at the interview. So they will still accept you, even if your bench test skills are not that good, because they already liked you. Unlike the other process when they won't even talk to you before they see that you're great at bench tests. So the people who are not that great personality, but really good clinical skills have much higher chance to get into the schools that has the bench test first. But with all that being said, interview is still the most important part, even if the school has the bench test first. Why? Because now that you all pass the bench test, now that you're at the interview stage, you have nothing else to differentiate yourself. At least in the schools where the interview is first, you hope like, okay, maybe interview didn't went well, but I'm the best at clinical skills. Here, everyone they're talking to think their clinical skills are perfect. They think their clinical skills are acceptable and they will accept them based on that. Now, interview is the only thing that will decide your admittance in the school. So wherever you look, however you decide, interview is still the most important part of your application. So once you receive your invitation and you see that there's a bench test on the interview, which is kind of the most common way interviews gauge their applicants, study for your bench test. Yes, you should study for your bench test. You should make sure your clinical skills are adequate. But with all that preparation, please, I'm begging you, don't forget about interview, because even if you pass your bench test, the most important part is still going to be left out. Make sure you study your story. Make sure you understand how the interview process goes. Make sure you have adequate questions to ask the interviewer. Make sure you learn everything there is to learn about the school that you're going to, so you can actually pretend at least that this is the dream of yours. And of course it probably isn't. It is rare. We kind of all hope to get accepted literally anywhere, but it is so important that you actually pay attention to that part of the application, and don't forget that this is the last door that you have to open to get into school. Dental schools have thousands of applications every year. Every single year, they have more applicants they can possibly look at. And if you read any school's website, they will tell you that they are the holistic school that reviews every single applicant and that they read every single application. Unfortunately, most of the time, it is not true, because who is going to pay all the people who's going to read all the crap that you write in your personal statements? Nobody's going to do that. So majority of the time, the process is decided by the filters. And I have this information from many different admissions committees that I talk to, and I've been doing, again, this for a very long time. And particularly one that I kind of decided, yeah, this is how it goes, is from BU. I went to BU myself, and in BU, they were telling me when I literally just asked, look, this is how it goes. We have a filter. We put the filter onto a certain GPA. We put it like a 4.0 GPA, and we see what comes up. If they have enough people in that pool, they interview all of them, they send them all in a interview invitation. Once that's, that's adequate, they liked everybody who is there, they reduce the amount of GPA. They go to 3.9, then they go to 3.8, and so on until they fill up their class. If your GPA is 3.0 and you're applying to that process, you already see how you may be the best person in the world and the kindest and the most charitable one. They won't even see your application because the class will be filled by the time they get to you. And that is what majority of the schools do. It's just the way for them to speed up the process. So once they picked up that class, and if you're lucky enough to receive an interview invitation, they already think you're good enough. They're already, okay, all your stats are good enough for entering class. We want to learn about you as a person. You're going to be in this school for at least 2 years. So you're going to be working with these professors. You're going to be a part of a big class. So they want to make sure that you're going to be actually nice to talk to. You're not gonna scare their patients away. You're not gonna be trouble for the professors. You're not going to be somebody unpleasant. So that's literally like hiring a person to their job, basically. That's somebody who they're going to rotate every day with, and they wanna make sure that you can actually talk to this person. Also, TOEFL scores are not very decisive most of the time, and they actually want to see if this person can speak English. It's also very important to actually hear if he's audible, if you can understand what he's saying. Most of the time you're going to be talking to multiple interviewers. It is very common to have 1 or 2 interview processes at the same time, like one after the other, and every single person has their own biases. Most of the time you will take one interview, there will be very different people with very different questions that they ask you. It is up to you to actually pull yourself together, and if you think that the first interview didn't go well, you have to pull yourself together and move on to the second interview as if nothing happened. If you kind of go to school's website and read what's their acceptance rate, usually on average it's about 15 to 20%. So they would, for example, they would invite 100 people to an interview and they would only accept 20 out of those people. So it is very competitive. Some schools are different, and I'm putting together a list of schools with their acceptance rate so you would have a little bit better idea of how many people will get in. For example, in Oklahoma, the schools that I went to, they invite, in my year at least, and of course they increased the number of the students in their class since I went there, but they invited 30 people for 12 spots. So their acceptance rate is a little bit like in the facility of 50%, assuming that some people don't accept their acceptance and they accept more. So I would gauge it's like if you're invited to an interview, it's about 50% chance that you will get into the school. In BU, on the other hand, if you get an invitation, there's an 80% chance that you will get in. So they invite for an interview a very limited amount of people, and if you got that invitation, most likely you will get accepted. So out of 100 people, they will take 80 for the people of the class. In my future videos, I'm going to discuss the subject of an interview more. We will discuss every single question, every single trick that the admissions committee can do to you and how they can torture you in this process. So stay tuned and definitely subscribe if you are interested about dental school interviews, because that's actually one of my favorite subjects. And if you need help with your particular school interview, reach out to me. I've been helping people with their mock interviews for a very long time, and I would like to help you as well. This was basically a public service announcement for you to not forget about the interview. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a very short video, but very informative. Stay tuned for the future ones, and I will see you in the next one.